Hey Karateka, how are you? We are here today for a different kind of lesson, sort of a little bit of a bonus, because usually I'm going to be posting the regular karate lessons on Thursdays, and of course today's Tuesday. So wanted to talk about a couple of things. I am going to talk about our Dojo Kun and kind of a little bit about, I'm going to focus in on one of those statements, if you want to call it that, of our Dojo Kun, and talk a little bit about that. And then also I'm going to tell you a cool samurai story. It's one of the samurai legends about Miyamoto Musashi, who was one of the greatest samurai in history. And we're going to talk a little bit about him and kind of sort of a turning point in his life, which is sort of interesting. So we're going to talk about that. But first, let's talk about the Dojo Kun. And I have the Dojo Kun right here. How handy. This is actually the one I keep in my house, so that I don't forget it, because it's all important. I'm just going to kind of read through. The Dojo Kun means sort of the Dojo Creed, or sort of the principles that we live by. So the first one says to strive for the perfection of character. And we talked about that a little bit in our last junior class where we were actually together. That striving for the perfection of character means that we try to be perfect all the time. We may not be perfect all the time. I pretty much guarantee we're not perfect all the time. I know I'm not perfect all the time. But by trying to be perfect, we do get better every day. And actually there's a Japanese principle called Kaizen, which is constant improvement. And I think that to strive for the perfection of character helps us with constant improvement, whether it's in our karate techniques or in our character development, and trying to be better people. Then trying to be perfect makes us better every day. So the second one is to defend the path of truth. And you notice over here they all say one, 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 one. That's because none of these is any more important than any of the others. So one, to strive for the perfection of character. One, to defend the path of truth. One, to foster the spirit of effort. One, to honor the principles of etiquette. One, to guard against impetuous courage. So these are our principles from our Dojo Kun. And today we're going to talk about the last one. We talked about this one. We're going to talk about this one a little bit, is to guard against impetuous courage. So just a little bit about the word impetuous means kind of reactionary or impulsive. So it's important that we guard against impetuous courage, because sometimes our emotions or our feelings will cause us to do things that aren't the right thing, that aren't sort of striving for the perfection of character, that are actually making us less perfect. And if we act impulsively and impetuously, first of all, it's very dangerous, because if you act on impetuous courage and you think, oh, sure, I can, jump off this rock, and it's a really high rock, and, if you think about it a minute, you definitely shouldn't jump off it, then you could get hurt physically. But also, you might think you're really right about something, and you go and you argue with someone about it, and you yell at them or whatever, and turns out you're wrong about it. Then you've had impetuous courage, and you acted on it, and you ended up hurting somebody's feelings, or maybe a relationship with somebody. So that's why that last principle there, one, to guard against impetuous courage, is just as important as all the rest. That's why they're all Okay, so the samurai story I'm going to tell actually has a little bit to do with impetuous courage, and it takes place on an island, which is where I am right now. I'm on what they call Four Tree Island here in Portsmouth, which is one of my favorite places in Portsmouth. There's literally no one on this island but me, so I am still self-isolating. I am isolated on an island. Anyway, there's not usually a lot of people here, at least when I come. And usually when it's not so muddy and wet and snowy, somewhat snowy, it's a good place to practice karate, because there's not a lot of people around, and so you don't get in anybody's way. and it's really great. If I look off that way, I can see the naval shipyard. If I look behind me over there, I can see the cool bridges in Portsmouth and kind of the little town part over there, a lot of the fishing boats and stuff. And I'll edit some footage in so you can kind of see the surroundings where I am, because it's a pretty cool place. Anyway, the story takes place on an island, and it involves two samurai, actually very well-known samurai. One of them is named Sasaki Kojiro, and Sasaki Kojiro was a famous samurai, and he was, the word samurai actually means service, so most samurai were in service of someone, and he was in service of a daimyo, which is like a rich landowner, who also was sort of a ruler or leader at the time. And he was in the service of the daimyo of the Hosokawa clan. So there's a lot of Japanese words that are, the names are kind of fun to say sometimes. But anyway, so that means he had a master. He was a samurai with a master. And he was well known for a lot of things, being very talented, very skilled swordsman, first of all, and primarily, but also was known for the actual sword that he carried. His actual sword that he carried was a little over a meter long, which was fairly long for swords at the time. It was actually about 8 inches longer than most other samurai carried. It was so long that they used to call it the laundry pole. So he could hang his laundry out on it, I guess. Anyway, so he was well known for this sword. And he became famous enough that he came to the attention of Miyamoto Musashi. Musashi is definitely one of the most well-known swordsmen and samurai in Japan in history. And Miyamoto Musashi was a ronin, which means that he had no master. So that's like if I learned karate from my teacher and then I just kind of went out on my own with no guidance or anything. He had no master. He was a ronin. He would basically go around, and at the time, samurai would duel a lot like knights would. So they would battle each other to show their skill and sort of build their name up. And they would do it like knights did over, in the Western world. So it wasn't unusual for samurai to duel to the death, which is obviously pretty scary and pretty intense. So Musashi had many duels, and obviously he was still alive, so he won all of them. And he had developed a fighting system or a sword system where he would use 2 swords instead of just one. And one of the things, I guess, and I can't really admire a guy who killed a bunch of people, but one of the things I like is most samurai at the time were all trained to be right-handed. That'll actually come up in some of the etiquette and the things we do in class. But Musashi made sure that when he trained evenly on both sides. So he was just as good left-handed as he was right-handed. So those were the things about Musashi. He had so many duels that at this point in his life, he actually had stopped using his regular swords. He no longer used a metal sword. Anytime that he fought someone, he would do it with what they call a boken, which is a wooden sword. I actually have one I can bring in and show you guys in class someday. And so he basically kind of wasn't finding the challenge. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Princess Bride, where Inigo Montoya doesn't like to fight people right-handed, so he always uses his left hand to make it more of a challenge. Musashi had switched over to using a wooden sword all the time to make it a challenge, so that's kind of his thing. So anyway, so the day comes for this battle. Musashi had actually set it up for a certain time on Ganryu Island, and Kojiro showed up before sunrise. And Kojiro, because he was in the service of a master, he had a whole bunch of people that came with him. He had friends, they brought officials, cooks. It was kind of like a party, almost. He brought what they would call sort of an entourage with him. And they were all on the beach, and they got there before sunrise. It was about 3 hours before the battle. Kojiro went off to a quieter part of the island there, and he meditated and sort of got his mind, all calmed down and ready for his battle. And then he came back and ate sort of some breakfast and had some tea and was talking with his friends. He was very relaxed and composed waiting for the battle to start. So, in the meantime, hours pass. Hours and hours pass. So, it comes time for the battle, and that goes. And then another hour goes by, and another hour. And the whole time, Kojiro, because this is considered very disrespectful to be late, Kojiro is really getting angry. Very, very angry. Because Musashi is dishonoring him and being disrespectful. So in the meantime, Musashi was actually just down the island a little bit in an inlet. He was in a fishing boat with a fisherman who he had paid to help him that day. And he took the fisherman's spare oar. He had 3 oars. And he took the spare oar and he was carving it. And now he's late for his duel. He's sitting here in this boat carving an oar. And he's carving it into a sword. A wooden sword, a bokken. So that he can use it. He's also, he's wearing shabby clothes. His hair's kind of disheveled and he's just got it kind of in a bun on the top. Samurai wore top knots, which is actually kind of a man bun, but I don't fault them for that. Anyway, so he's here in this fishing boat and he's carving and he's wearing dirty clothes and shabby clothes, and he's got a beard. He's let his beard grow in. He hasn't been keeping himself clean and stuff. He's actually dirty. And finally he sort of motions to the fisherman, okay, take me now. So the fisherman rows out into the ocean and then, circles around and comes back to the beach. So by now, it's early afternoon, and their battle was supposed to be in the morning. So Kojiro is really mad. Now, a lot of people had tried to convince him that maybe Musashi ran away, but Kojiro knew how good Musashi was, and that he wasn't fearful. So he knew that he was doing this intentionally. So the boat starts coming in, and his friends sort of recognize him, and finally Kojiro realizes it was Musashi. Not only does he see now that he is late, but he's also showing up all shabby clothes, and his hair's a mess and everything. He's not looking respectful at all when he shows up. So he was insulted, and he was really angry and outraged. So he grabs his sword from his sword bearer, and he starts charging down the beach to strike at Musashi. In the meantime, Musashi comes up and gets out of the boat, and Musashi draws out the wooden sword. Oh my goodness. Kojiro's even madder now. Not only does he show up looking like this, and 3 hours later in the early afternoon, not only does he do all that, but now he has the nerve to pull out a wooden sword to fight me? Oh my goodness. So Kojiro is like totally angry, and he just runs at Musashi. And he swings his sword, but Musashi moves out of the way. And he actually came so close that he cut off a little tuft of Musashi's hair. That's how close he came. So then he's so angry, he goes at Musashi again. Musashi takes the wooden sword, and he swings it, and he hits Kojiro in the head. So then Kojiro stumbles a little bit, and while he's stumbling and staggering, Musashi pulls the wooden sword back again, and he hits him in the side where his ribs are. And he ends up breaking his ribs, and his rib punctures his lung, and Kojiro loses the battle, which means he's killed. So Kojiro's friends see what happened, of course, because they're right on the beach, and they all start rushing at Musashi. But Musashi kind of knew this was going to happen. So he runs back to the boat and gets in the boat and tells the fisherman, let's get out of here. So as the fisherman is rowing him back, Musashi starts to think about what a talented swordsman Kojiro was, and how much hard work and talent and training went into him becoming what he was, becoming the warrior that he was, and really what an honorable, great samurai he was. And he starts to think about what a waste all this is. Like, they're having these duels to prove how great they are, but in the end, someone who worked really hard and trained really hard and is dedicated to service, again, that's what samurai means, ends up dead, and his whole life is kind of wasted. So Musashi, at that point, is now sobbing in the boat. He's actually crying. And from that time on, even though he continued to train and he continued to teach swordsmanship, Musashi never again would have a duel with anybody to the death. He would never, he never killed anyone from that point on, because he realized how pointless it was to do so, just out of pride or, you know, showing off. So a couple of things we can learn from this story. First is that Kojiro's anger and outrage made him so unfocused that when he charged at Musashi, he did it totally emotionally, and he didn't use his head at all, and he ended up defeated. And that actually kind of runs along with the guard against impetuous courage. He didn't really think about what he did first. He just went totally with his rage and insult at Musashi, you know, treating him so disrespectfully. And that actually led to him losing the battle. And the other thing we learn is that Musashi's history, he actually had his first duel at age 13. And this was about, I believe, when he was about 30, when this duel at Kanryu Island happened. And he, at this point, even at this point, as great a warrior as he was, he realized that fighting is really pointless, unless you have to defend yourself. So he learned at that point that fighting is for defense only, and not to prove how great you are or what a great battler or swordsman or warrior you are. And that, of course, is the principle that we run our classes on. In Japanese, it says karate no ni senti nashi. Karate do ni senti nashi. In karate, there is no first attack. And as I had mentioned, that was Gichin Funakoshi who said that, who brought karate from Okinawa to Japan. And that was his saying. Another thing he said is that the goal of karate is not to teach you to fight, but in the character development of its practitioners, or the people who practice it. And that, you know, that's kind of more our goal here. I mean, it's great to learn these techniques, and it's great to be able to defend yourself or defend people who can't defend themselves. But in the end, we have to remember that what we're doing here is trying to teach ourselves things like discipline and focus, and basically the things from our Dojo Kun. You know, to be truthful, to always try our hardest, to be respectful to other people, and to think before we act, and try to do the right thing, to be perfect all the time if we can. So anyway, that's our lesson for today from lovely Four Tree Island out here in Portsmouth. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I will actually have another video lesson on Thursday that's kind of karate stuff. I'm going to show you that entire kata of Taikyoku Jodan Ich, which is, Jodan is our upper block or upper area. So Taikyoku Jodan Ich. I'm going to actually go through that and show you what that looks like. And we'll kind of break that down and see where we can get with it on Thursday. So look forward to another video on Thursday. And for now, from lovely Four Tree Island, where the only other participants and occupants are two seagulls who are actually flying away now. I hope you're all doing well. I know this is a difficult time with everybody kind of staying away in their homes and stuff. And like I say, hopefully within a couple of weeks we'll all be sort of, I don't know, 100% back to normal, but we'll be able to get back together and learn together again. And that is about it. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Make sure to, if you're one of my junior students, you better be helpful at home and respectful. Be nice to your parents, because they're probably going through kind of some stress with this whole thing too. So make sure you're helping out and being as good as you can, striving for the perfection of character. And that is it. Hope you're all having a good day. Take care. And that actually brings me to the story, whoops, That's actually probably one of my favorite places in Portsmouth. Because there's not usually a lot of people, so you can usually kind of come out here. And when it's not so wet and mushy and even kind of snowy today, you can actually come out here, and it's a good place to practice karate. The only thing you gotta look out for is a lot of geese, so that means there's a lot of goose poop, and you definitely don't want to do karate in goose poop. But anyway.